Hello, Travis Thomas, Mr. Ant Blair. Hello.
Christina's got her
Hey,
coffee. I've got my iced coffee. And
Got my
what do you
coffee.
got?
I have
Oh, you got the
a aluminum eco-friendly container of H2O, my good
oh
man.
right. Look at you
H2O.
being the
There
healthy
you
one.
go.
I appreciate that.
Nice. Nice. Mm,
For the planet,
well,
y'all, for the planet. And for my hydration, y'all.
that's good. That's good. It's good. Well, hey, we're talking Travis today. We wanted to highlight and showcase all of your talents, your skills. Man,
Oh,
I
this will
was
be this
looking.
will be a quick video then. Awesome.
Ah,
We'll be out of here in 2 minutes. I love that.
man, that's don't be playing around. I saw on your website you've been all over the place, like with your
Yeah.
training, with your coaching. I saw the Olympic team, the men's Olympic team, USA, Team
World Cup team.
USA.
Close enough. Close enough. The World Cup team. I know it's like Olympics, World Cup.
It's
Close enough.
incredible.
Similar. Yeah.
It's
So
incredible. So tell us a little bit about what you are focusing on lately for your public speaking and for your training, because I know you just got a new book that came out.
yes.
Um,
Oh, what? A new book? Wait, what? You mean that one? That one? Right? I just happen to have that just laying next to me here. Wow, it's
that's
crazy.
awesome. That's awesome.
Uh, yes. No. Yes, I do have a new book that came out in December
Uh-huh.
called "Confidence is Overrated." It is available on Amazon. For those of you who are watching the stream right now, we'll just wait real quick and for you to purchase that. And then once you
Go
purchase it,
ahead.
we'll
Go
continue. Okay, all
ahead.
right,
No
good. All
problem.
right, good. We're
Okay.
good. So yeah, it's been great. The book is in a lot of ways it's autobiographical, which my first book was similar, where I was kind of using sort of my life experiences, how I sort of got into the speaking and coaching industry,
Uh-huh.
and the first book was about how the principles of improvisation have kind of become my niche in the speaking and performance space. And the second book is looking back at sort of my last 20 years as a coach and then as a speaker and a consultant with teams and organizations. What have I learned and noticed that seems to be kind of a common thread over and over again, working with high performers and then working with
Yeah.
organizations, which was this idea that as a society still we still overly emphasize the importance of confidence
Mm.
Mm.
when you boil it right down. I think all three of us can agree as speakers and presenters, confidence is great. It feels good.
Mm.
Doesn't mean we're going to do well. And just like
Facts, not fiction, Travis Thomas.
and just like being nervous or anxious doesn't feel good, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to do well.
Mm.
And so when we continually to perpetuate not only to children, whether it's in
Mm.
school or in sports, but adults, we work with adults and they're like, yeah, I've got this presentation, I just don't feel confident. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what? They're like, what do you mean, so what? I can't do well if I'm not confident. I'm like, no, you can be terrified.
Ah.
But if you're going to be, while you're terrified with this presentation, what are the two or three most important things you need to do during this presentation to have a good presentation?
Mhm.
And so we shift the focus away from feelings to actions and behaviors. I
Mm.
need to make sure I really slow down. I need to make sure that I make good, strong eye contact with the audience. I need to make sure that I reinforce my two or three key ideas. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Focus on that, go do that, and don't worry so much about how you feel. And as a group of presenters here, we all know that when it comes to feeling confident, confidence usually
Mm.
comes after the presentation. When we look back and go, okay, I did my what I needed to do. Whew, now I feel good. So instead of focusing on confidence, what do we really need to nurture and teach? We need to focus on courage.
Ah.
Can I be courageous? What does courage look like today? Like all of us, right? All of us, when you think about it, we all had, this is the first time talking to blank. This is the first time giving a blank. This is the first
Yeah.
time doing a keynote that's this. This is the first time doing a virtual this. This is the first time. So like last week, I just gave my first ever high school commencement address,
Nice.
right? So I'm like, all right, check. Like I've done this and I've done this, but I've never given a commencement address. And that's a whole
Yes.
new, you know, talk to give in a really, really small window, and you want the deliverables to be meaningful and memorable. And so like, awesome. So there was a different kind of nervous energy going into that, but it wasn't about being confident. It was about shifting my focus to the deliverables. What did I need to focus on to do a good commencement address, compared to what do I need to focus on to give a good keynote, compared to what do I need to focus on to give a good workshop. And so the book really kind of captures how I've been really doing that for the last 15, 20 years, and what I've been learning from high performers in the process of doing that.
That's awesome. I love, as you're saying that, that's funny because I was just in Oslo last week doing the
Yeah.
first time a new talk.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous
Yeah.
because I was vulnerable, and I was like, oh, why is it, I've been speaking for however many years. Like, why am I nervous? I'm not feeling very confident about this. And I just went up and I just did the things, and I just did what I do. And there was a moment, because it's a very vulnerable talk. It's the most vulnerable speech I've ever given.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
there was a moment where I got a little choked up, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. This is the first time I've done this talk. So it's funny that you said that, because I just showed up authentically. I did it. And then once it was done, you're right. I got the feedback from the audience. People came up, they thanked me. A couple people were in tears. I got a hug. It was really sweet. Somebody invited me to speak on their YouTube channel. And afterward, I was like, oh, actually that worked out. You're right. The confidence came after. That's so interesting how you broke it down, because I just had that whole experience that you just broke down, Travis, last week, personally.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I can see how that it totally makes sense. It completely makes sense.
And I would say, like, how much more did you prepare for this talk compared to if you had done a keynote that you had done numerous times, right?
I prepared a little bit more,
Yeah.
but it was more of a last minute night before prepare,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh my gosh, because I was good. It was fine. And then as I got closer, I was like, oh, it's not going to be good. I better double prepare. I better extra. I'm not sure. I second double guessed myself at the last like 2-3 days. And so the last 2 or 3 days, I started running through things, which I don't do. I normally don't do.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, it's the most vulnerable talk that I've ever done. This was the first time I've done it. I don't know if you've ever spoken it up in Scandinavia before, but those Norwegians, they're very stoic. They're not very emotional.
I'm
so I
half
was
Finnish, Christina. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
there you go. Yeah.
But
I
I'm
went
not
to
very
Finland.
stoic.
I went to Finland for the very first time too. I was surprised. Man, there's a whole Finnish karaoke culture.
Really?
It was great.
So what did you sing, Christina, when you did
Well,
karaoke?
come on, Travis. I had to go with my go-to, No Diggity, Blackstreet, the Dre version.
No doubt.
The Dre version, yeah.
Yes, I like the way you work it.
That's
No
right.
diggity.
That's right.
You got to
That's
back it up.
I brought the house down.
Yes,
I don't
you
think
did.
anybody even
No
spoke
question.
English. There were like two. I found the only two other people in the entire place that spoke English, and we talked a little bit later. But it was great. It was a bless. I sang that one. I sang Creep. It was great.
Oh,
I had some guy come up. He's like, "Yeah, you hit the high notes. But it was in tune. Good job." He was like so impressed that it was in tune. But I couldn't believe it. At one point I tapped dude on the shoulder. I said, "What time does this place close?" He said, "Oh no, this is 24/7."
No kidding.
Yeah, because at 4 a.m. they close the bar, and then they only serve like these wine cooler drink. Like they have this gin. What is it called? The gin cooler or something? I don't know.
Gin
It's
and
like
juice.
2% alcohol.
That's a
And
whole other
so-
karaoke song.
There I am. Yeah,
Rolling
I had a
down the
good time
street,
in Finland.
smoking. All right. Well, it's good. It's good that you didn't have to keep it on the down low so that no one else had to know, Christina.
Yeah.
That's right.
While you were creeping. I love that. Well, Christina,
Hilarious.
you said something during, you said that this is the most vulnerable talk that you've given.
Mhm.
And how obviously it touched people. It had it had an impact. I just saw some research the other day where they put people in like in an electromagnetic cage, and they had them share different stories, one that evoked anger, another one that evoked joy. And they were kind of reading sort of like brain scans, electromagnetic scans, to see which created the sort of the highest energy between anger and joy, which one created the highest energy. And what they didn't realize was when they went back and looked at the scans of the people telling their stories, was that they saw these spikes that was these different spikes during the talks. And what they realized was when they went back and evaluated the stories, those spikes were moments where, as the viewer, you kind of felt a connection to the story. And what they realized was the spikes were authenticity spikes.
Interesting.
It was when the speaker was being most authentic. And not only did their energy spike, it also correlated with the viewer feeling like this was the most impactful point for them as well.
Interesting.
So it became this unintentional study that showed that it's really about our ability to tap into our authenticity that has the most powerful impact, which shouldn't be surprising to the three of us, but
Yeah.
it feels like, Christina, you just had that experience.
Yeah,
yourself
it was
with
it
what
was
you
great. It
taught.
was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And like I
fantastic.
said, after the fact, I felt really confident to be able to have Norwegians hugging and crying and emotional. Like that's an achievement.
They don't do that kind of thing
That's
over
right.
there.
Yeah,
You
the
just
first,
changed an entire culture, Christina.
right.
The
Yeah, that's funny.
countercultural Christina Aldan.
That's funny. Yeah, the first time I ever spoke in Norway, I I noticed, because I'm a person, and you're the same. I've seen your stuff. You're engaging with the crowd, right?
Yeah,
And I get head nods and stuff, and I wasn't getting head nods,
yeah,
and so I started speaking faster, and
yeah.
I'm getting more nervous, and I'm like, "Hey,
Mhm.
raise your hand. Who here?" And nobody raises their hand, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh!" And then at the end, I said, "Who has questions?" And nobody had questions, and everybody just
Oh,
gave
wow.
me the golfer's
Yeah,
clap, and they
yeah,
calmly stood
Oh,
up and they
wow.
walked out, because culturally they don't want to be
yeah,
disrespectful,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Interesting.
so I panicked the very first time, having not done my research. This time I was prepared. This time I brought out the big guns, and I got some emotional responses. So. But that's different. It's interesting. Different kinds of audiences, right? And different cultures. You have to
Yeah.
prepare. Now, you do this too, Travis. You're in different
Mhm.
audiences with your trainings, with your workshops, with your one-on-one coach. How do you adapt, and what do you find? Like when the difference between when you're working with a team versus when you're doing one-on-one. How
Yeah,
does that work?
I think to your point, it's recognizing that every audience is different. There's context in every group. It's different giving a keynote at a conference where it's a group of individuals compared to giving a keynote at an actual company
Yes.
where there's an internal culture there that you're dealing with, that you're speaking to, that you know and that you don't know, and there's so many different dynamics in the room, and there's a difference between speaking to a sales team and speaking to an internal operations team, and the energy, and then obviously you have
Right.
the cultural thing that you talk about, going from one country to the next, or even one part of the country to the next, and the different cultural things that come with it. So, as a speaker, just like anything, it's like the more you do it, the more you kind of get your reps, and the more that you realize that even though whether the audience is participating or not, they're participating, and they have a big impact on you as the presenter, and how you prepare for that and how you respond to that uh, is going to be important, so that you can find a way to still deliver your message and have the greatest impact based on the audience. And so I think another part of that too is just for me going in and working with teams, so whether I'm working with a sports team or whether I'm working with an organization, I know that I'm not going to go in there and pretend to be the expert of their thing.
Right.
It's not about me pretending to be, but can I speak their language enough to show that I have enough understanding of what they do, but I'm not trying to be the expert. So what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do is bridge my expertise with their day to day in a way that feels like, oh, he did his homework. He's not telling me how to do my job. he's telling me how his expertise is relevant to what I do. And so to be able to bridge that gap, and I know that, you know, we've probably sat through lots of keynotes where someone comes in and they have their story or they have their thing, and it can be a great story and it can be a great thing, and they deliver it. But sometimes the onus kind of feels like, well, I'm going to tell my story. You figure out for yourself how it's relevant to you.
Yeah.
And that's like, and again, I think I think there's an extra level of relevance when I come in and I say, I have my story, I have my thing, and I could
Right.
just deliver it and say, hey, you figure out how it's relevant to you. But it's probably more impactful if
Sure.
I have more understanding of what's going on in your world.
Yeah, you're trying to marry them
Right.
together. You're
Yes.
complementing their work.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
an additional you to enhance it. You're not coming in and going, "Hey, use my system, try my blueprint. This is how I do it. You should do this too, because I'm
Yeah,
the expert."
yeah, yeah. I
Right.
just got off of a sort of a workshop prep call before jumping on here with a client that I'm going to be working with, doing a few leadership workshops over the next
Mhm.
year with their team, kind of quarterly workshops, and you know, just having a discovery call, like I can come in and hey, here's the content I'm going to deliver, and it will be relevant to your team. But as I'm having this discovery call, what I realized was, hey, there's some big transitions going on behind the scenes, and there's some trust
Mhm.
issues going on behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh, well, that now makes what I'm going to present so much more helpful,
Mm,
because now I have an understanding that, hey, yeah, what I'm saying is relevant, but I'm probably going to need to lean into some specific areas, spend more time, and be a little more empathic to what they're going through, instead of just
sure.
saying, here's my great content and go.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, just this, you know, the more kind of homework and research we do on our audience and who we're working with, it's going to make our message that much more impactful.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Agreed.
I made that mistake one time. One time I made that mistake. You just don't make that mistake again.
Yeah, yeah. When you get the feedback like, yeah, she was great, but it really has nothing to do with what we do, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I was nervous, and I thought that nobody liked me. I had that experience. I spoke really fast. I started to speak fast, and then I went out and I
Uh-oh.
looked at my ratings. I had all greens. I
Yeah,
had 2 yellows and I had 1 red. So everybody liked it. I
yeah,
got all greens. It was fine, but it wasn't the audience I was used to, and I
yeah,
hadn't done my
yeah,
homework, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But you said something that Ant talks about a lot.
Mhm.
You always talk about getting in your reps, Ant.
Yeah, yeah,
Always. Yeah, that really resonated when you said that, Travis, getting in the reps. I think that people don't understand how that, for at least in my experience, that creates that confidence.
Mm,
oh
I've
my gosh, that's the preparation. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It's, Steph didn't make all of those 3 pointers just by hopping on the court one day and say, you know what, I'm gonna start shooting threes.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? You know, he put in however many, what the Tony Robbins
Like
little
10,000
short where he talks
hours,
about,
or yeah,
mm,
yeah,
or he's probably
yeah,
put his 100,000 hours in this point. And so, like, you
huh,
think about competence creates confidence,
there it is,
right?
man. There it is.
And not always, right? Super competent people can still actually not have confidence. My wife is a great example. She does peace building
Oh
work and she
wow.
gives workshops all the time. And while I was writing the book, she actually said to me, Aunt, she said, you know what? Every time I give these workshops, I'm always super nervous, and then they go really well. And she says, I'm just not sure I'm ever going to feel confident. I was like, maybe not. Who cares? Because
Hmm.
you continue to,
Interesting.
you still do the work and you deliver a great product. And so this sort of, you know, quest for the holy grail of confidence is like,
uh,
why are we on that quest? Who cares? Do it scared. Like I think it was, is it Mel Robbins that maybe like do it
Yeah,
scared, or whatever. Yeah, do
I
it
think it
scared,
is. Yeah, do it
but
scared.
just still do it. But
That's
those,
right.
yeah.
those reps, and you know, it's funny. I grabbed coffee with a young woman yesterday. She was she was the aunt of a student who graduated from my
Oh,
commencement address, and
right on.
she goes, I want to be a speaker. Will you grab a coffee with me? So we grabbed coffee yesterday. she's young, she's mid-20s, and she's like, I want to do what you're doing. How do I get started? I was like, great. Well, A, what do you want to speak on? This is what I want to
Right.
speak on. I was like, all right, well, we need to get some reps. I said, when
That's
I
right.
when I kind of started off as a speaker, we were living in Florida at the time, and I'm like, oh, the Rotary clubs, right? There's Rotary Club
Yes.
organizations in every community in the country.
Yeah.
And I reached out to every Rotary Club on the East Coast of Florida and said, this is who I am. Here's my background. Would love to come in. I know you always need speakers for your events. Would love to come in and speak to your group. I probably did a half dozen to a dozen of those over the next year and a half. And I went
Hmm.
in, it's unpaid, but I got
Right.
reps. Sometimes I'm
That's
standing in
right.
the middle of a cafe. Sometimes
Yeah.
they've got me in a private room, whatever.
Yeah.
You get those reps, you meet people, you network, you
That's
connect, and
right.
you're like, hey, I might have an opportunity for you. But at the end of the day, you're getting reps in front of real people and you're
That's
getting
right.
experience. I also told her to go sign up for an improvisation class. Shout out to the
That's your gig, man, is the
I'm
improv.
like,
That's your
do
thing.
you want to get comfortable being on your feet and not having a script?
Yeah.
Everyone should take a level 1 improv class.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning for me, 27 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, and
That's a lot of reps, brother.
that's a lot of reps. My wife said, you got your 10,000 hours a long time ago. And it's like,
Fact.
how many of us have ever had to stand up and give a presentation where the tech doesn't work, right?
Mm.
Where the room is a horrible configuration, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where your 60-minute presentation got cut down to 30, right? Where every possible, and so you're like, do I want to hope that, the bad thing never happens, or do I want to be prepared for the when it does happen and know that I will be able to adapt regardless?
Yeah.
And that's what improvisation sort of trains you for is dealing with the unknown and
Yeah.
being comfortable in the unknown.
Yeah.
Kind of like living in Flint, Travis.
Kind of like living in a Flint. That was my childhood gave me those reps, Ann.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dude, I can hop on the stage anywhere, anytime, any place
Yes.
with anybody because of Flint, Michigan,
You're like,
man.
you think this is going to intimidate me? And you're like, I grew up in Flint.
Exactly, man. There's nothing that can possibly shake me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But we share that common thread, Travis and I.
Yes.
We're fellow Flintstonians.
Flintstones to the end.
Flintstones. Flintstones.
I love it. I love it. As we wrap up here, Travis, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to connect with you? Look at your workshops, get your books, your trainings, and you're still doing one-on-one coaching these days too, right?
I don't advertise the one-on-one coaching, but when people reach out and I do have the availability, I will do it if I have the availability. It's just so much of my focus right now is on the speaking and the consulting. I really love coaching. The one-on-one coaching is really fulfilling, but I don't want to overly fill up my schedule because I have to prioritize.
There's only one Travis.
Yeah.
Only one Travis. AI's working at it, right? But there's only one Travis. But as far as getting a hold of me, my website is Live Yes And. That's my organization, which is Live Yes And. And then I'm on all the socials under Live Yes And LinkedIn. But and I'm super accessible. So when people direct message me, I always respond.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
So people reach out and would be happy to connect more with others and
Nice.
hear what's inspiring other people. So I appreciate it.
Nice.
That's one thing I can appreciate about you, Travis, is that if you have the time, you open your door. You open your door if you have the time, man.
I would love to say it's because I'm such a giving and generous and kind person, but selfishly, I just enjoy it. I just really enjoy the connections and I enjoy talking to people. And so it's selfish, but it's just, but I genuinely enjoy it. So, yeah.
Great.
Reach
Great.
out.
Love that about you. Travis, thanks so much for your time. Mr. Ant Blair, of course, always good to see you, friend.
Great
Oh,
seeing both
see
of
you.
you.
Good to see you again, Travis. I'll be
Yeah.
sending you that. I'll be getting that book.
Yes, I'll be sending you that
we
autographed
get
copy.
That's right. That's right.
That's
Excellent. All right. You all have a wonderful day. Enjoy your Thursday.
You too.
Hey, take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.